Thank you for making this movie, and welcome home,
Thank
Jenny
you,
Slate.
Meredith.
For those who do not know at this point, what is the origin of Marcel?
The origin of Marcel is, I guess, that I started doing the voice one weekend when Dean Fleischer Kemp and I were at a wedding, and we were sharing a hotel room with like 3 or 4 other people, and we were really squished in, and I felt that they were all also like very messy men, and I started to grumble a bit, but in a good-natured way, in a voice that I had never done before, and it was Marcel's voice, and we were all kind of taken by it, and I just kept doing it all weekend, and that's how it began.
And let's talk about the movie, because we know that, I think for a long time, Marcel fans have been hoping for this, and I wonder when it really became a reality.
Yeah, so we put the short online, I believe, in the summer of 2010, and it just was something that we did for fun, and something that a lot of the things that I try to do just like in my own work end up being like a rehabilitation of some sorts, just to try to get back to feeling confident or self-worth. And at the time I was like waiting to be fired from SNL, and I like still don't understand why they didn't just fire me. Like truly, I will go to my freezing cold grave just wondering. So I was just waiting and feeling very stopped, and so we put it online like mostly as a personal thing. And it got popular, and then it took us like a couple of years. We would sometimes make new Marcel shorts when we felt like it, and we made a couple of books, and that was really fun. And then, like anything that seems like it has popularity, it was attractive to studios, and they all wanted to pair Marcel with like a male movie star who was really tall, and not like let him have his own movie, and certainly not let us make the kind of movie that we thought this could be, which is like, no, what you saw in the shorts, just like make it more, and that was really hard to understand, and I'm not really good at pitching things, so it was hard. But finally, Elizabeth Holm, who is she wrote the story with us and is our producer and has produced most of my work, produced Obvious Child and Landline and my comedy special on Netflix, and yeah, she is the best. She was like, oh, I know these people at Cinereach, they fund, like people's work, and introduced us to them, and we wrote a very long treatment, told them that we were not going to write a script, but that we were going to improvise a full feature-length film off of a treatment, and they said yes. Yeah.
So it's hard not to see this, and I think I had told Jenny probably months ago that during COVID, during the beginning of 2020, sometimes like living alone, I would go back and watch the Marcel shorts, because I sort of felt like Marcel, like walking around the house and being like, here is where I do this one thing every day, and I'll look out the window every day. And it's hard not to see it through that lens of loneliness, isolation, and also how scary the world can be when you see people again, as exciting as it can be. So yeah. I just wonder what kind of influence, if any, it had based on timing.
It didn't, honestly. I mean, I wish I could say like we're psychic geniuses and we feel a collective unconscious before you all do, but this is just we made this movie because we were following, I think like I can only speak for myself, but like when you're close to a character, you understand the game of their narrative. When you're a person and you're hopeful, you have a game of your own narrative. Like if my relationships go well and my skill set is muscular and strong, I'll go forward in this way and I'll become this version of myself. And the same is with Marcel, the character. It's like, oh, well, like, he should feel this way and go through these things. And I also think that for Dean and I, because our relationship changed from husband and wife into, friends and artists that still wanted to be able to like cling to their treasure, that we were working through our own feelings of loss and how to repurpose loss so that it doesn't become a fossil that just gets forgotten forever, but has like a spirit like yelling from the deep. And so that's why we tried to do it this way. But anyway, the timing was not like on purpose. But I do think that weirdly, we all just went through something at once that usually most people are going through in tiny little pods by themselves. And the reason why I feel like it's very, very resonant isn't just because it's like, oh yeah, right, we were all just spread apart, but because you're like, oh shit, people are like this all the time. And it's it's like worth examination.
Can we talk about Connie and the casting? Well, Connie and casting of Connie.
Yeah, sure. The grandmother's named Nana Connie. My grandmother is also named Nana Connie. She lives in Brookline. I drove by her house tonight. She's very, very, very old. Dean's grandmother, Dina, who is in she died during making the film. She also had dementia, and it was very startling. She was an exceptional woman. She was a sex therapist in the 1960s and like would blurt stuff out about dildos and stuff, and was like just an incredible woman, and got dementia, and it was very jarring. And Nana Connie is a combination of our grandmothers. We wanted someone who had an accent, was an immigrant. My grandmother, Nana Rochelle, her name is Jenny Slate. She's an immigrant. She's a Holocaust survivor. It was very formative for me to have a grandmother who was from another country and had her experiences. And so we created a character who was experiencing almost and had a history of a combination of all of our grandmothers. And Isabella just like said yes. And it was like confusing, honestly. Like, we recorded this whole movie for the most part. We had different spots. Like Nana Connie's garden, Isabella actually allowed us to film it at her farm. We tried to get the most natural sound and the most natural environments. But for the most part, like, we filmed it in this house where we used to live, and it was super weird to have Isabella Rossellini in our, like, rental. Like, order her DoorDash Thai food that was too spicy. Like, it was like, we are dealing with a legend, and I hope, like, she will stay with us. But she is so real and so cool. And I guess one of her kids told her that Marcel is cool. And so she truly was like, I did not know what Marcel is, but I show up. And we were like, okay. Like, here we go, dude. And we did.
Who came up with the garage line? It was so great. I watched this alone, pretty much alone the first time, and I laughed so hard, and it was so great to hear
I don't know.
that land.
I don't know. And a lot of the film is improvised. I don't know who came up with that one. Some of it is like, we would always record and then we would go back through the audio. Dean and Nick Paley, who's our like really structured and wrote out a lot of the script with Dean, would go through and be like, okay, actually we need like more here. Here are some lines we should say, and then we would go and record and improvise more on those. So I actually don't know the answer to that. To some of them I know. I'm like, oh, that was Dean. Oh, that was Nick. Oh, that was Liz. Oh, that was me. But that one I don't know.
I'm going to throw it out to you in a second. I want to ask about the poem. And when I first saw the movie, I went home and printed out the poem and like put it on my refrigerator. Like,
Yeah.
It's such a, I just wondered how it was chosen. And it's Philip Larkin, right?
It's Philip Larkin. I believe Dean chose it. It may have been Nick. It wasn't me. I wish it were, but it was not. I mean, I think honestly that people are afraid. I know that I find a lot of poetry to be like just not very accessible, which is a difficult thing to say in public because my father is a poet, and basically being like, mostly I don't get it, but I also love a lot of poetry, but I don't like it when it's too obscure, and so I think it can be really intimidating, and I think for sure often it doesn't go into film, and especially films that are like trying in one way or another to touch everybody, including children, but that said, like, sometimes you don't need to understand every word of everything to know the feeling and to get what it's about. And, and I actually think visual art can be that way too. And anyway, I think it was a beautiful, like, Dean was like, we're putting this in. And I thought, like, I'm so glad, because there's not an option for there to be modern dance in this movie. Like, I like it when films have unexpected mixtures of media, or there's like a recital of literature from before. So anyway, I just I think that moment is, of course, like really spooky, and I deeply enjoy it.